Thank you all for coming here today to the meeting of the full authority. I'll start off with apologies for absence. We have councillors Cronley, Hardy and Murphy. I'm just checking to see if they've come anyway. Emergency evacuation procedures is the second one, and I'll pass over to the Chief on that.
Thank you, Chair. So emergency evacuation, we're not expecting a fire alarm this morning. So if the alarms do go off, then it's down the main staircase, out into the car park, and then we'll carry out a roll call to make sure everyone's out the building and everyone's safe. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. There is one declaration of interest, and that's Zoe Coombs, who has declared an interest in paper 9, obviously the appointment of the new Fire Authority Clerk stroke Monitoring Officer. We've had no public access statement, but we've got quite a bit of Chair's business. So this meeting is taking part here at the Severn Park Training Centre in Avonmouth, and we are recording the meeting for the public to view on the Fire Authority YouTube channel. So first off, we'll get members, elected members, to introduce themselves. I'm Councillor Goggin, representing Hartcliffe and Witherwood Ward in Bristol City Council, and I'll go to my left.
Councillor Martin Williams, North Somerset Council, Cusack Ward.
Jane Stansfield, South Gloucestershire Council, Thornbury Ward.
Robin Moss, Westfield Ward, Bath and North East Somerset.
Tim Kent from Bristol City Council.
Richard Eddy, Bishop Summit, Bristol, and it's the first time, Chairman, I've been referred to as to the left of you.
It's a circle though, Richard, so it comes round. They meet in the middle.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Paul May. I'm a councillor from Bath and North East Somerset and Vice Chair of the Avon Fire Authority.
Hello, Councillor Annie Townsend from Central Ward, Bristol.
Good morning, Councillor Onkarseni, Bath and North East Somerset.
Cam Haywood, Councillor for Knoll in Bristol.
Good morning, I'm Robert Payne, Councillor for Western-super-Mare Central, North Somerset Council.
Good morning, everyone. Councillor Yasin Mahmood, Lawrence Hill Ward, Bristol City Council.
Good morning, Councillor Raj Sood, representing Frenchy and Downend from South Gloucestershire. Thank you.
Good morning, Councillor Matthew Riddle, Severn Vale Ward in South Gloucestershire.
Good morning, my name is David Wilcox. I represent Lockleys Ward in the fine city and county of Bristol.
Thank you very much, members. It's nice to see so many of us here. As Richard says, I do have a tendency to go to the left, so I'll ask officers to introduce themselves, starting with Zoe.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Zoe Coombs, and hopefully after item 9 you'll all be happy to appoint me as your clerk and monitoring officer at first meeting today. Lovely to meet you all.
Good morning, everyone. Amber Foreman, Director of Corporate Services. Morning, my name is Verity Trescott. I am Statutory Finance Officer.
Good morning, Emma Bowen, Democratic Services.
Morning, everyone. I'm Ian Potter and I'm the Continuous Improvement Manager.
Good morning, everyone. Paula Lyons, Assistant Chief Fire Officer, Portfolio.
Morning, everybody. Luke Dazard, Assistant Chief Fire Officer for Service Delivery.
Good morning, Richard Welch, Assistant Chief Fire Officer, Service Delivery Support.
Good morning, everybody. Matt Kirk, Chief Fire Officer, Chief Executive.
Thank you, everyone. And now, as part of the business, I'm going to pass to Zoe to start.
Thank you. So I just wanted to flag from the outset for this meeting, I'd be ever so grateful as part of our commitment to inclusion and accessibility. Please be mindful that I'm deaf and I am aware that there are members also in the room who are also deaf and hard of hearing. So whilst during meetings I will personally be using my phone app Roger table microphones, and they are strategically placed around the room. You might notice one in front of you. They they will assist me with hearing, but I will also be relying on lip reading. And so where possible, I'd ask if you could face me when you are talking to me, and I may ask you to repeat what you've said. So that's not me being rude, it's simply that I haven't heard what you've said. If I could ask if you could speak clearly and try and avoid covering your mouth, that will really help as well. I know Councillor May and I have had a conversation about that this morning already. So these adjustments, they will help ensure clear communication, and they'll enable me to participate fully within your meetings. So ever so grateful for any support that you can give. And if anyone has any questions, please just approach me. I'm more than happy to talk to you about deafness and deaf awareness, and particularly anything that you're concerned about in terms of your relationship with me around that. So thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Zoe, and for telling us so clearly exactly what the issues are. And we've already discussed. I'm not going to face Zoe, unfortunately, for a lip reading because I need to obviously see the meeting, but we'll do what we can. So, firstly, welcome to Zoe, subject to number 9. Zoe brings with her an impressive 18 years of experience in the HM courts and tribunal service, where she has built a reputation as a highly motivated, dedicated and respected legal manager. So welcome. We all look forward to working with you, and I do especially. I rely a lot on the clerk to help me with meetings and all sorts. So welcome.
Thank you.
One other thing that wasn't included on the Chair's business, but we'll slip it in. The Avon Fire and Rescue Service Carol concert is next Thursday, the 4th of December, at 6:30 p.m, and that is at the Lord Mayor's Chapel. Obviously, you're all more than welcome. It's always a nice service, and we have the firefighters in traditional gear, old stuff, shiny helmets and all that. So, yeah, please come along. As I say, it's always a nice evening. So now, before I do the good news, I'm going to just pass. Obviously, there's been a story in the media which we've all seen, the awful fire in Hong Kong. We don't know yet how many casualties there are. It's obviously a lot, and we've been made aware that there has been at least one firefighter death as well. So I'll just pass to Matt for a minute.
Yes, thank you, members, officers, and to our local communities. So, obviously, we saw on Wednesday the tragic incident that's unfolding and continues to unfold in Hong Kong, and it would be remiss of us not to just mark a moment to recognise what that community is going through. There has been a significant loss of life, and firefighters continue to tackle a very complex incident, and there is information that they have also lost one of their firefighters. It's a national tragedy, and also reminds us that 8 years ago we faced our own challenges and tragedy within the UK following Grenfell Tower, and it is a reminder that our firefighters are on the front line every single day, putting themselves at risk in our own service, serving our local communities to keep them safe. And there are times when they may be asked to make the ultimate sacrifice. So I would like us, if it's okay, to just stand and take a moment's silence for a minute to recognise the tragedy that's in Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thank you. And I noticed also on that story in the media that 3 contractors, I think, have been arrested already, and it's possibly a shame that we didn't do the same after Grenfell. Anyway, here we'll move on to the good news. Individuals and teams across the service have been shortlisted for 4 awards at the Excellence in Fire and Emergency Award 2025. This includes Emergency Services Collaboration of the Year for Avon Area Blue Lights, International Best Practice for the Odessa, Ukraine Fire Engine Initiative, Project of the Year for Intranet Project Team, and Training Provider of the Year for Celine Gallagher. The awards take place in London on the 5th of December, so obviously we'll let you know how we get on, or have a little look on the internet. Watch Manager Matt Pember, Firefighter Lee Parsons, Firefighter Nick Tucker, and Firefighter Michael Kotlewiski, I hope I've pronounced that right, from Temple Red Watch have been awarded Chief's Commendations for their extraordinary actions during a critical incident in Easton on Friday the 5th of September. On the way back from a shout, they noticed a bit of a commotion, and they were called over, and somebody had been stabbed, a young man. They managed to stabilise him and stayed with him until the ambulance services were able to get there. They saved his life, and that was later confirmed with a letter from the ambulance service thanking them. And it just goes to show, if you phone 999, the only service that's going to get you in 7 minutes is us. And firefighters don't just put out fires, but we all know that anyway. Chief Officer Matt also presented 5 commendations to James Grady, Dave Prue, Tim Stevens, Stuart Cole and Chris Newman following a significant fire. The team rescued 2 people amid the blaze via a ladder carried down from the first floor. So well done to them. I'd like to also, at this point, it's provisional, but it's another potentially good news in that we have to dispose of a large amount of foam. Now that was going to cost us £100,000. We are now working with FireAid to hopefully, for the princely cost of £5,000, taking it to Ukraine where it is desperately needed. We have to make sure that we're allowed to dispose it in that way, so it's not 100%, but I thought it was too good news to mention. If I could just remind everyone to use their microphones. Okay, that's working now, is it? Brilliant. Thank you. I'm normally loud enough anyway. So if I could just, as I said, remind everyone to use their microphones when you're speaking, and to remember to turn them off when you've finished, to make sure that both everybody can hear and also that your input is recorded on the YouTube recording. Any voting today will take place by a show of hands. I will ask for any votes against, any abstentions, and then the votes in favour. So we now move on to agenda item 6, which is a couple of minutes. I'm going to move that they are fair and accurate representations. Does anybody have any corrections, amendments, deletions? No? Would anybody like to second that then? Thank you very much, Paul. I'd like to ask, are there any votes against or any abstentions and votes in favour? Thank you very much. Those minutes are passed. We also have a chunk of committee minutes. that's agenda item 7. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, including one confidential. Again, I will move that they are a fair and accurate representation. Are there any objections to that? Any votes against? Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you very much, Councillor. Any votes against? Any abstentions? And all those in favour? I'd also, at this point, just skip ahead to agenda item 14, which would be a exempt session, and there are 3 sets of confidential minutes to approve there. So in advance, if we can agree them without discussing them, we won't have to go into an exempt session, and it will save us all a bit of time. So I'd like to propose again that they are a fair and accurate representation. I will sign them all and pass them to the clerk as well. Any corrections? No? Brilliant. Abstentions? Oh, sorry, I will have to ask for a seconder again. Richard, thank you very much. Any abstentions? You weren't there for some of them, were you? Okay, thank you, Tim. That's noted. Councillors? So we've got...
Abstain for the same reasons.
Abstain because they're the policy committee and I'm not there.
Okay. And...
Also, in some of the meetings I wasn't present, so I'd like to abstain.
Okay. Same for you. Annie? Paul?
Chair, can I just ask a governance question? If we're not on a particular committee and we're then looking at the minutes, do we have to abstain?
I don't think so, unless you know that they're incorrect. I don't think so, really, but I'm happy to record them at this stage anyway. Anyone else? No? Are there any votes for then? Thank you very much. That will mean we won't go into exempt session. So, rattling through, we are now on agenda item 8, which is a progress update following an HMI revisit to the service in July. And Ian will present this.
Thank you, Chair. So members will be familiar with the outcome of the round 3 inspection by HMI CFRS in 2023 and the subsequent revisits that had taken place. There were 3 prior to this one. The latest revisit took place in July this year, and the letter was published in September. And this particular revisit focused on 2 of our causes of concern. So it was around the risk information accelerated cause of concern and the prevention cause of concern. The values and culture cause of concern was not looked at as part of this revisit and will be picked up as part of the full inspection. HMI highlighted a number of positive findings beyond the recommendations that they were looking at. They recognised the considerable work that the service has made towards the improvements across those 2 causes of concern. In terms of the risk information accelerated cause of concern, they said that there was sufficient progress to move one of the recommendations to an area for improvement, and the other recommendations were closed, and that accelerated cause of concern was discharged. So very positive news on that one. For the prevention cause of concern, following the revisit, 5 of the 6 recommendations are now closed. The one remaining relates to resources and prevention activity, which I'll come on to in a moment. And in the appendix to this report, I've included a table which shows the status of all of the recommendations across all of the causes of concern, just so you've got a full picture on that. Beginning with bullet 5.15, there's an update on the progress that we've made against that risk information that's moved from a recommendation to an area for improvement. And I'm pleased to say that the work that's being carried out means that we're now moved into the business as usual for that, and we'd be anticipating that one also being closed at the next inspection. The prevention resources, so this is bullet 5.18 in the report. So this sets out some of the activities that we're undertaking to increase our prevention activity, either within the prevention team itself or across our whole-time workforce. And we're also looking at opportunities to learn from other services to see if there's more that we can do. So we're going to be, we are engaging with other services in our benchmarking family group to see what they're doing and see if there's any of the things they do that we can transfer into our own service. A report on those measures are going to be brought to the February Service Leadership Team meeting. So we'll have some more information at that point. So all in all, good news at the revisit. There's just that one recommendation that's still open, and lots of activity underway to resolve that. The service remains in the enhanced monitoring engage with HMICFRS, and we continue to periodically meet with FPOG, as it's called, the Fire Performance Oversight Group in London, and we're working with the various agencies that attend that to facilitate further improvements and get support from them. The next full inspection commences in just a couple of weeks' time, so this will have been the final revisit against the round 3 inspection report, and so we're very much into the preparations for the next round. The inspection itself commences on the 15th of December. It's a 10-week inspection period. They'll be on site with us for a week in the middle of January and again at the beginning of February, and then there's some virtual meetings that take place in the second week of February. And the final report is due for publication around about the middle to end of June. So it's quite a long process, but that's kind of when most of the activity from our perspective will be taking place. Ahead of that inspection starting, we have a workforce survey that's open at the moment, and so we're working to try and encourage as many people to engage with that, so that we get people's voices all across the service into the inspection process. And also there's a document request, so ahead of that inspection we're asked to provide almost 70 key documents for the service. So it could be policies, procedures, plans, and a whole range of other things. So we're busy working on that too at the moment. In terms of kind of the wider piece, fairly recently let me just get the right terminology. The State of Fire and Rescue Annual Assessment of Fire and Rescue Services in England 2024-25 was published. I've not gone into that in the report, but I'm happy to share the link after the meeting if members are interested in looking at the report that's been published. This looks across the whole sector for the last financial year, and covers things such as overall performance, improvements that have been made, and challenges and sector reforms. I'm happy to share that link with members afterwards. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Ian. And I know I've got some meetings scheduled in January and February with HMI. This will be my first inspection, so I'm quite looking forward to working with them. I'm going to open up to questions from members. Oh, blimey. Okay, I'll go round this way. David first.
Thank you, Chair. I'm interested in getting some more information about the Fire Performance Oversight Group mentioned on page 81 of the bundle. It's not a meeting or group that I've heard of in my time with the Fire Authority, so I'd be interested in some background information and also who attends, please.
In terms of from our service, Matt Wago is the Chief Fire Officer. I've been to the last couple of meetings as well. Paula has also been to a meeting. So there's a small number of people that go from the service. Then there's a number of people from HMI, representatives from MHCLG. Now we've moved from the Home Office, the Local Government Association, the NFCC. Yeah, LGA. Yep. So there's probably about 15 people or so across those organisations. So there's an update from us. So we do a briefing. There's also a briefing from our HMI. And then there'll be various sort of other conversations that will take place, and offers of support, that kind of thing.
I think as chair, I'll be going along as well. Did you have anything to add, Chief?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, to add, the chair also attends, or if the chair's not available, they're a representative from the Fire Authority, so the Fire Authority is represented in that space. It's a really important meeting. It's a supportive meeting, so we will present our progress against the causes of concern. However, the stakeholders in the room will also seek to offer support. So, for example, the National Fire Chief Council have got an implementation improvement team, and they've been working closely with us to mature and evolve our approach around, for example, the mobilising causes of concern, site-specific risk information. MHCLG also sit in that space. And again, we recently invited MHCLG a couple of weeks ago to meet us at Temple Fire Station to talk about the progress we're making around our transformation, but equally some of the challenges we're facing. So it's very much yes, it's there to scrutinise our progress, but it's also there to make sure that there's a number of stakeholders, both at government level and local level, to support us in our transformation journey. So they're really valuable and they're really important meetings. So hopefully that gives you some context.
Is that okay, David?
Yes, that's grand. Thank you, Chair.
Next in the queue.
Thank you, and congratulations on progress so far. Well done. I've got two questions around the prevention aspect of the work of the service. The first question, is enough resource being given to that area of work? So is it a resource issue?
I think we're just completing a piece of work today, actually, and I've got a meeting next week around capacity of our whole-time crews in terms of what they can deliver, not only for prevention, but other areas of work like training, incidents, and that data set is going to allow us to make a really good informed decision about what capacity they've got on station to help us deliver more prevention work. We've identified a key area already that we've had some great success in delivering more activity, and that is around post-incident activity. So after an incident, not just a fire, but an alarm or a bariatric rescue or road traffic collision, the new process is our crews will do a sweep of the 20 properties around that incident and deliver home fire safety information and hopefully generate more visits. So we're generating more activity and productivity through that method, and that's going to be expanded next week depending on what the data says.
Thank you. It's good to hear that work going on. My second question is about using our partnerships, really, both higher and on the ground partnership working. Are we fully exhausted our partnership working in harvesting, trying to harvest as much leads, identification of high risk homes, etc., or is there more to do in that aspect as well, in using statutory and voluntary groups to identify vulnerable households? Thank you.
Absolutely not exhausted it. There's always more to do in terms of collaboration with partners. We have a partnership manager within the prevention team. that's a successful role in generating visits for us, but I think there's always more to do and more partners who can come on board and help us. And we've recently identified Avon and Somerset Constabulary as a key partner for helping generate visits. But there's a slight issue we've got at the moment about sharing data locally. That's a challenge for us. But in Gloucestershire, they do that very successfully, and the police pass on a lot of information around vulnerable adults, which we could then go and carry out some prevention activity. So once they're ironed out, that's just one example of us progressing and having a new partner on board.
Thank you. Who's next? Going round. Yes, soon.
Thank you for your information update. My question is, how confident you are 5.5 for remaining recommendations of the high-rise buildings strategies evacuation?
Yeah, I can come in there for you. I think we've got a rolling programme of site-specific risk information visits. So we've identified a number of years ago now through the calls of concern through HMI of all the tall buildings in this area. We've got a significant amount, over 18 metres, and all our crews have been out and collected risk data. That's available on our data terminals within every single appliance, in the front and the back of every appliance. And we've got a revisit programme as well, which service delivery support are just reviewing those revisit dates to see if they're appropriate and in line with national guidance. So we feel confident that we've got all the risk information for those properties.
Again, moving along. Councillor Sood.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. So, on values and culture, so given that culture was not a part of the July revisit, and there are currently no close recommendation in that space, so how confident are we that we can demonstrate progress to the inspectors in January?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor. So the decision not to focus on culture in that revisit was recognised. The HMI recognised that culture takes time to evolve. Specifically, we're confident that when it comes to challenging unacceptable behaviour within the service, we've developed and we have a robust approach to that. So we've got our professional standards board, which has been in existence for a while now in terms of how we manage concerns that have been raised by staff. We've got an independent reporting line, and we're growing a culture where people feel safe to challenge inappropriate behaviour, and the confidence that when they do challenge or when they do raise concerns, we will challenge and we will take action in an appropriate and proportionate way. So culture is something that evolves over time. We've set out a people, culture and leadership strategy, which members signed off recently. So we've set out what our vision is in terms of creating a culture where everyone feels safe, everyone feels that they belong, and we've got a core sense of purpose, to serve our local communities and to serve each other in that endeavour. That work will continue. We now have a people, culture and leadership board where we're focusing specifically on growing and nurturing our culture. Visibility of leadership is really important in that space. So we've just launched a new Keeping Us Connected forum where every month the Senior Service Leadership Board will go out and visit a different location, and we're using technology. So it's a hybrid meeting where we'll sit with a watch or sit with a team. We'll talk to them about the challenges they're facing. We'll talk about the changes that we're making in the fire service, and it creates dialogue across the service. Now that takes time. It takes time to embed, but I'm confident that in the next inspection that HMI will see significant progress in specifically challenging behaviours that fall below our standards, below our core code of ethics, but also around the development of a positive culture where people feel supported to deliver at their best. So I can talk about specifically the tribunal that was recently published in the press. So as a service, we took action against an individual because in their leadership they fell below the standard. We took a full investigation when those causes were raised. We took proportionate action against that individual, and unfortunately, the individual decided to take us to employment tribunal. We've just had it published that we were successful in that tribunal, and the action that we took against that low standards of leadership were proportionate and appropriate as a service. So I think that is a strong example where when there is when there is behaviour that drops below that expectation, we will take action and we will challenge that behaviour.
Thank you. And my next question is on the risk information system stability. Because in the report, following the removal of almost 13,000 records, so how confident is the service that risk information is now accurate and up to date across control and a frontline system?
For the number, the 13,000 that we have our inspection list, they've been checked, double checked, triple checked, with 3 lines of assurance for that. We have as Luke referred to, we have a very clear revisit program for each one of those, and it's a dynamic system in the sense that some will come off and others will go on, and the ones that that are being checked by control, I think there's very few of those left now to be finished. They're more or less done now. Certainly will be fully completed by the time the HMI come back and re-inspect in January.
Thank you. Going along the line, any more questions? Paul, did you have one?
Did, but Onkar raised the question I had, Chair. Thank you.
No, that's brilliant. And over to my left, are there any questions? No, I think all the questions have been asked, which is good. Thank you very much for that. We are asked to note the continuing improvement progress being made and the closure of 5 further recommendations and the closure of the risk information area of concern. And also to note that HMIC FRS has commenced the Fire and Rescue Service 2025 to 2027 round of inspections. Avon Fire and Rescue Service 4-week document request and workforce survey window opened on the 17th of November 2025 and runs for a 4-week period. The 10-week inspection period commences on the 15th of December 2025. So as we're only asking to note, I don't think we need to vote on that one. I'll just make one slight amendment. I've noticed that at the start we said that Zoe's declaration of interest was around paper 9, but that paper, the appointment of the new Fire Authority Clerk Monitoring Officer, is actually item 10. So just a quick amendment. So agenda item 9 is actually the Treasury Management Strategy Review, 6-month review from April to September 2025. And I'm going to pass to Verity for this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so my paper starts on page 85 of your bundles. As it says in the title, this is a mid-year review, so we're just looking at our investment and borrowing activities for the first 6 months of this financial year. Within the summary, it just confirms what elements this report covers, so the kind of things that we're looking at in terms of our treasury management and our borrowing activity. And then recommendation of this paper is to review the paper, so this one here is just for your scrutiny. Moving on to section 3 in the background, I won't go through the points in detail, but really the background here is just setting out for you what the requirements of the Treasury Management Code are and just confirming that we are fully compliant with those. And part of bringing this paper to you is to make sure that we're providing you with regular updates on our Treasury Management activity throughout the year. Paragraph 3.2 just confirms that there is a responsibility on you as members to review and scrutinise these activities, so activities in relation to our borrowing and our investments. As a service, we have a responsibility to make sure you are suitably trained. So something that we've been looking to arrange for you is some specific treasury management training. Emma's been sending some emails recently, and we think that's going to go into the diary for the 6th of February. So just to make you guys aware, but it was something that will come out to you in due course. But that will be in advance of us presenting our next treasury management strategy for the coming financial year. If I move on to section 5 of the paper, so section 5, the first part of section 5 has been provided by our treasury management advisors, so they work with us to make sure that we set an appropriate strategy and that we're reviewing it throughout the year, and they keep us updated on the changes in investment rates, in inflation, in changes in borrowing rates and things like that. So this just gives you an update on what's happened in the first 6 months of the year. So I'll move on to kind of more specifically what's happened for us in the first 6 months of the year. So if I move on to page 89, it talks about our capital position and looking at where we are in terms of our prudential indicators. So those are the indicators we set that make sure that any activity we do in terms of borrowing is sustainable, affordable and prudent. So this first table on page 89 under paragraph 5.12 just confirms to you what the approved capital programme was for this year and where we think we're currently looking in terms of spending. So the original capital spend was expected to be just under 15.5 million. But actually for the full year, we're expecting that to be more like just under 12. And then we're still keeping that under review because a large part of that spend is in relation to the Bath station rebuild. We now have got planning permission, so we can go. The project is in progress, but it's delayed compared to where we were before. So it might be even that as we continue to review that, more spend will be phased into later years. So it's just to confirm for you really that our capital spend has been, a chunk of it so far, around 3.5 million, and likely to be a little bit more, has been phased into 26-27. The knock-on effect of that is the impact on our borrowing. So if we look at the second paragraph on this page, which is under paragraph 5.13, the second table, sorry. This looks at what our borrowing requirement is, and you can see that initially we thought our borrowing requirement was going to be just under 12 million. Based on the current capital programme, we're looking at just over 8 million, and again that might be likely to reduce if we see further rephase of spend into the next financial year. The thing to highlight here is that we have an element of capital reserve outstanding at the beginning of this year, so just over 3 million. We will use that capital reserve first before we look to take on any external borrowing, because obviously there's a cost associated with that. So once that's fully utilised, we also look at whether we can internally borrow. So that would be looking at our current bank balances effectively, and have we got, so due to cash timings, have we got money internally that we can use and to delay borrowing further. So we're continuing to look at that as the year progresses. If I move on just to page 90, the top of this page really just looks at updating on other prudential indicators that were set at the beginning of the year around our borrowing limits. We haven't exceeded any of those borrowing limits or any of the indicators because of the fact that we've had a delay in our capital programme. But the kind of important point really at the bottom of this page, paragraph 5.17, is just the confirmation that we've operated within the limits that we've set for the year, and that I'm not expecting there to be any difficulties in us continuing to do that for the rest of this financial year. Page 91 just confirms borrowing activity. So we have at the moment £7 million of loans with the Public Works Loan Board. That has not changed for some time. We haven't taken out any new loans yet this year due to the phasing and the timing of our capital spend. We are likely to have to take out some borrowing before the end of the financial year, but we're keeping that under review depending on how the Bath spend, because that's the most significant one, progresses, and whether we can do anything to levy on our internal cash balances before we take on any additional costs. So we're making sure that we do the most effective thing, and we're using our Treasury, most cost-effective thing, and we're using our Treasury management advisors to help with that. Moving on to the last section of my paper, it's around investments, and it starts on page 92. We don't hold specific investments. We have a bank balance that Bristol City Council manage for us, and they pay us based on SONIA, which is an overnight index rate, less 25 basis points. So they pay us an amount of interest and they manage our account. So they use short-term kind of investments to maintain our liquidity for us. That hasn't changed for the first 6 months this year, so Bristol continue to do that. And we haven't made any separate investments during this first 6 month period. So if we move on to page 93, the table in the middle of the page there just confirms the investment income that we've earned for the first 6 months of the year. So that's based on the activity that Bristol City Council do for us to manage those cash balances, and it's just under £190,000 for the first half of this year. We have got a budget of 250k for the year, so it's if it was going to be evenly incurred, you might expect to hopefully overachieve on our budget numbers. But our cash balance does dwindle as the year goes on because of timing of receipt of grants and things, so it's not necessarily a straight line. I think that was all I was going to say on our Treasury management activity. So in summary, really, activity's been low. We haven't taken on any new borrowing yet. We haven't done anything different with our investments, but we are expecting that to change as we come to the second half of the year when we need to fund the capital programme.
Thank you very much. Very comprehensive as usual. Questions? I can see Paul.
Thank you, Chair. I chair the Audit, Governance and Oversight Committee, and I'm very, very pleased that we've got such high-quality staff working on this, and we audit all those arrangements, and I think it's really great. Invariably, when you get a report like this, everybody nods and you move on to the next item. But I think it's really important that you just highlighted the fact around Bath. Getting planning permission on that building in Bath was absolutely exceptional. It's a high-profile location, and it was really great that the planning committee applied unanimously in support of that development. And to actually get that through, we've had discussions here in the board before about how difficult that would be, and I think great credit to everybody for doing that. And the final point really is just whether, with the capital, is there any, we're going to have revenue problems, as we know, that we've got to deal with in the future. Are there any elements of the work that we do, this is probably a question for Luke more than you, Verity, any elements where we could invest capital to actually reduce our revenue costs?
I think in terms of some of the premises and maintenance things, maintaining our premises means that we can hopefully reduce unplanned expenditure on maintenance and things like that, which would be on our revenue budget. I mean, something that Patrick does, and obviously Amber might be able to comment more on than me, is the kind of regular maintenance that we do of the on-call stations and things like that comes from the capital programme to try to control the revenue budget spend that we have to keep those stations operational. So it's always in our mind that we're looking to do that, but I guess it's something that we consider as part of the capital programme as a whole. I don't know if there's anything more to add. No.
Paul, Councillor.
Thank you. Well, we know we got a few of the planning applications being approved, and we're expecting some of these projects to trigger, but do we have any sort of like a timeline, like if any major capital project expected to trigger new borrowing later in this year, and if so, what is the projected financial impact?
So the main one that is likely to trigger borrowing is Bath, because it's the most significant spend. We have smaller spends going on, but Bath is the one that we, at the moment, within the spend that's showing as forecast for the remainder of this year, I think there's £8 million allocated to Bath, and some of that has been spent, but not a significant amount yet. So that's the one that is likely to trigger. I was speaking to the head of premises yesterday about the timelines. I need to understand what the timelines and the cash milestones are, so that we can then overlay that in terms of our general cash forecasting to see where we think we've got pinch points, and that's what will trigger the borrowing. In terms of the financial implication of that, it all depends on the interest rates that we can borrow at. At the moment, the Treasury Management Advisors and the Public Works Loan Board rates are suggesting that it's better to borrow short, so not take out borrowing for a significant amount of time and then likely to re-borrow effectively. To take advantage of lower rates that are around at the moment and short term. So we have a forecast within our current financial year that's allocated to the interest that we expected to spend on borrowing. We will likely underspend on that because there's been a delay in the capital spend, so therefore there's less spend on interest. We're still looking at what that number looks like for the rest of the year. But when we come back to Policy and Resources Committee in January, we are looking at what that rephase for the full year, what impact that has on the budget.
Thank you, Verity. Tim?
To be fair, Robin had his hand up first time. You sure?
Yeah,
okay. Thanks. Just a brief question then, just around the Public Works Loan Board loans. It sort of is noticeable that shorter loans are at a slightly cheaper interest rate, but obviously some of our capital programmes are will be quite long-standing. So can I ask, sort of, is the strategy that we take out shorter loans to get that lower interest rate, or do we go for the longer loan because I can sort of see that gives a certain stability?
It's likely to be a bit of both. We'll probably take out shorter term loans to start with, but we need to think about one of the prudential indicators, which we haven't, because we haven't taken out any borrowing, we haven't had to comment on it in this paper, is around the maturity profile of your loans. So you don't want all your loans maturing at the same time. So we need to bear that in mind as well. So we need to think about what's the cheapest way to borrow, but also we don't want all of our loans maturing in 2 years' time. So we'll use the Treasury Management Advisors to help us with that. So I think it's likely to be a combination of the two, because cost implications are clearly important, and the borrowing has a significant impact on our revenue budget. But in terms of borrowing, we don't necessarily, our borrowing, the length of time we borrow for doesn't necessarily have to match the life of the project. So we have freedom to borrow over whichever period is kind of deemed to be the most suitable based on the rest of our portfolio of loans and the interest rates that are on offer at the time.
Thank you. Robin.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the answers to Tim's question, which actually makes one of my questions more complicated. Yep, like Paul, I think echoing the happiness that the planning committee actually, or planning officers agreed, the Bath consents. Anecdotally, you might be interested to hear that one of the objections to that planning application was the loss of a beautiful Georgian building. Technically, George VII is Georgian, but probably not in the way that people are referring to when they think of Georgian. A word of caution is there is still the archaeology work once that happens, and there is the potential for that to uncover things that weren't uncovered, a century ago. Looking at the capital expenditure and understanding that effectively 2/3 of that are Bath, and also understanding that there will be a revenue saving because of a lack of interest payments. I was slightly concerned looking at the amount of money being spent on fleet would be about only 2/3. Will that have a spend to save implication with presumably not replacing fleet? I'll do that one first, and I'll come back to the other ones.
I think the fleet one's part of the reason there are some delays in the fleet programme as well, and if Rich wants to come in and add any more, is partly to do with making sure that we're replacing our fleet with the right thing. So we're not necessarily just replacing same with same. It's looking at what's the right thing, what's the right appliance, and what's to match our risk profile and things like that. So there's been pieces of work to make sure that we're not just replacing. We're doing a good a rounded piece of work to make sure that it's the right investment. I think we don't necessarily what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of stretch our asset. We have a fixed profile of replacing, but we don't fully stretch those lives. So I think by having a slight delay, it shouldn't be at a detrimental impact in terms of the service that those assets provide and things like that as well.
Okay. Thank you for that. Also, trying to understand the overall potential borrowing. It does seem slightly counterintuitive that short-term borrowing seems to be at a lower rate than longer-term borrowing, but I guess that is as it is. Is there a difference between, from it sounds like short-term borrowing, which has to be refinanced once that matures, and borrowing which will expire because effectively you've paid off the loan? And how do we reflect that in the overall figure of, is it 7 million of external borrowing we have at the moment? Yeah.
So the 7 million is capital we have borrowed in the past. In terms of repayments, we don't physically repay any of those loans until the end. But what we do is make a provision within our revenue budget, which is called the minimum revenue provision. So it forms part of the capital financing costs. You have the interest, and then you have the minimum revenue provision. So we're effectively kind of putting money aside from your revenue budget to repay once those loans mature. So we don't actually repay anything until maturity, at which point you could decide whether actually you want to refinance and not repay the loan or repay.
Okay. Probably a conversation for either offline or another place to try to understand that. Slightly different from certainly other elements of local government.
No, but if you want to drop me an email, and we can have a separate conversation.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks, Verity. I'm looking around. Oh, Rich, you want to come in?
Just to reassure regarding the question around fleet, Robin, as Verity said, we are carrying out a programme at the moment looking at all of our fleet, from service cars right up to the fire appliances, to match the fleet to the risk we've got, as opposed to replacing like for like. We also have a process of rotating the fleet as well, so the busier vehicles will get moved around to quieter stations and vice versa, so to rotate the fleet, so we are getting a standard use across the fleet. But there is also, we have an issue of the new fleet we order is often got a 2-year lead-in period from the time we decide what vehicle we want to the time it actually gets built and delivered is a 2-year period. So that's where you might see the fluctuations in some of the spending within fleet.
Thanks, Rich. And Chief, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, it was just to say thank you for acknowledging the successful planning permission for Bath Fire Station. It's really important, and obviously we're talking about capital borrowing costs, but there's a strategic outcome to these numbers, and what is really important is that we've secured with Bath and North East Somerset permission to progress forward with an important community asset. So the station itself is not in the state that represents a modern fire and rescue service. The ability to now move forward with that project and provide a modern fire and rescue service building within the heart of Bath, protecting significant heritage risk and that local community is really important for us. So it's also the ability to make sure that we tackle the contaminants risks for firefighters. So this is an emerging risk where we know that the built environment needs to be designed in a way that minimises risk to firefighters in terms of exposure to contaminants. So it's a community asset, but it's also about making sure we've got a modern fire and rescue service that's fit for now and in the future. So thank you for acknowledging that.
Thank you, Chief. Paul, you had a question.
Can I ask a question with regards to vehicle replacements and clean air zones? And is there a policy around vehicles being compliant in terms of electricity, or whether all those vehicles are actually capable of being converted?
Yeah, we are still working towards all of our vehicles being clean air zone compliant by 2030. As we know, I think we've discussed in this forum before, as far as electric appliances, fire engines, we're a little way off of that because they're not that isn't ready to go yet, really. And there's an additional issue of the cost of those, which are around about £1 million each, as opposed to 300,000 for the one we currently supply. As you know, our grey fleets, our officer cars, are mainly, in fact, they're all either electric or hybrid. We've got a few diesels left, which are now getting phased out over the next sort of 12, 24 months, and they will be replaced probably by hybrid. So we are sort of well on track for replacing, for all of our vehicles becoming clean air compliant.
Thanks, Rich. And Robin, you wanted to come back in.
Yes, as we've moved on to cars and vehicles, apologies for the pun, probably worth just flagging up at this point that Bath and North East Somerset are going through a movement strategy for Bath, with particularly taking account of low traffic neighbourhoods and the rest. Probably worth looking at that from the point of view of a blue light service to make sure that doesn't impinge or impede on emergency vehicles being able to travel around the city. Bit of extra work for the weekend.
Thank you, Robin. David, and then Tom.
Thank you, Chair.
And then Tim.
My question is about the Public Works Loan Board rates on graph on page 91. The thick red line that says 50% year target has a bit of a kick in it in September 2025. A 1% rise might be significant over 50 years. What is that kick, please?
So this is a graph that Treasury Management Advisors provide. It's not one that I've prepared. So I can ask the question. It will just be something that's happened, that's had an impact on, but I can ask them for a little bit more detail around what's driven that.
Thank you.
It was just linked to Robin's point. I think it'd be quite helpful if a paper came to the relevant subcommittee on low traffic neighbourhoods and the fire services response. So not just Bath, but also East Bristol neighbourhood, South Bristol neighbourhood. I want to hear from the fire service about their perspectives rather than reading through about it through freedom of information requests that have been coming out, and they've obviously flagged significant concerns with the way the existing scheme, certainly in East Bristol, has been designed and the problems that's causing for the fire service. So I think it'd be really good to have a detailed policy paper to set all that out so we can look at that and input. Thank you.
Can I just come in there, Chair? Is that okay? Yeah, we've been working very, very closely with Bristol City Council at all levels of the organisation. So I meet at exec level with the council, and then teams below me also meet with transport teams and the like. So we've got a really good process in place where if our crews do come across an obstacle or some difficulty in responding, then they've got a piece of software where they can report that in straight away to us, and then we liaise directly with transport within the local authority, and they try to resolve that within 24 hours for us. We've got a lot of data available now. We've produced a report. As you've mentioned, we're getting a lot of FOIs on this as well, so we've had to release some information. But we can definitely bring a paper back to a future meeting to provide some assurance on our approach and how we're working well with the council.
Thank you. And Luke, I know we have a new reporting system. It's online rather than, I think it was paper, was it before?
No, it's always been digital, that report. But we're trying to review it at the moment, and I think we're just working well with Bristol City Council around trying to get a 24-hour response, not just a Monday to Friday response on that. So we're just going through that process at the moment.
Good luck. Tim.
Thank you, Joe. Just on the fleet replacement issue and clean air zones, I'm aware there's a substantial pot of money for contribution towards vehicles that don't meet clean air zone standards, particularly for public service. Have we had discussions with Bristol City Council? Have we been able to access any of those funds for Avon Fire and Rescue Service? Or have they just kept it to themselves? Did they tell you about the millions of pounds they've got sitting in their bank account they've not spent yet?
Yeah, apologies, yes, I'll recall it now. Yes, we have had those discussions, and our head of fleet, Matt Derrick, has been tasked with following that up further to see how much of that we might be able to access for that purpose. So, yes, we're on it.
Good, glad to hear that. That's great news.
Thanks, Tom.
Chair,
Paul.
Just to follow up on that, we had a major issue, I think about a year ago, around Bath and the clean air zone and old vehicles and quite specialist vehicles, which it's easy to say you can change your vans, but it's not so easy when you're talking about anywhere between 500,000 and £1 million for a piece of equipment. So it is really important to the communities that we do that, but we recognise that, I think, as a council working with the fire authority, which I think was really positive.
I think, but just out of fairness, it was actually Bristol City Council that approached us to make the offer to us. So I know that our head of fleet's working with that.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay, that was entertaining. So we have been asked to review the performance in relation to the Treasury management activities of the authority for the first half of 25-26 as set out in this report, and I think we've thoroughly done that. So we can now move on to agenda item 10, which is the appointment of the new Fire Authority Clerk / Monitoring Officer. And I'm passing to the Chief on this one.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. So I've presented a paper to Fire Authority, which is item 10, and it starts at page 99 of the bundle. You'll also find an appendix, which I've included, which is a job description of the Clerk Monitoring Officer role. So just to roll back in terms of the original instruction that I took from the extraordinary Avon Fire Authority meeting on the 2nd of June, I was instructed by the authority to convene a panel of elected members to run a recruitment process for the role following the resignation of the previous position holder. The resignation was an opportunity for the individual to move on with their career pathway, so representing the positive development they took from being the Clerk Monitoring Officer from the service. But obviously, moving forwards, the actual vacant position became open from the 15th of August. We made a decision at the Fire Authority meeting in the summer to appoint an interim monitoring officer, which was Amber Foreman, who's sitting with us today. And then we progressed forward with the applications of 3 applicants were received, and we shortlisted down to 1 individual, which was Mrs. Zoe Coombs, who's with us today. And the selection panel was made up of 3 members as per the Constitution. So we had Councillor Paul May, Councillor Paul Goggin and Councillor Matthew Riddle. A selection decision was made at that point based on merit, and Zoe Coombs was identified as the preferred candidate. So the recommendation today for the paper is for the Fire Authority to approve the panel member's decision and confirm the appointment of a new Fire Authority Clerk Monitoring Officer, Miss Zoe Coombs, from the 3rd of November 2025. As has been already discussed today, Zoe comes with significant experience and is a qualified solicitor and meets the skills, knowledge and experience required within the role map, and again went through a competitive process and was appointed by the selection committee based on merit. So I'd hand over to the chair and the authority to make a decision on that point.
Thank you, Chief, and just to say a vote of thanks to obviously the outgoing Amanda, should she be so bored that she's watching on YouTube. Okay, questions on things? Richard.
I suspect no member will have questions. I have the utmost confidence in the selection panel at arriving at the best candidate for the job, and I congratulate Zoe. Echoing your comments earlier in the meeting, I'm sure that goes for my colleagues. I just look forward to working with her in the future. In the case of yourself, myself, that will only be until next summer, but I'm sure for other members that will go on for years. Welcome, Zoe.
Thank you, Richard. Nice words. Do we have anyone else that wants to say anything? No? Okay, well, we'll have a vote on this one. The Fire Authority is asked to approve the panel of members' decision and confirm the appointment of a new Fire Authority Clerk / Monitoring Officer, Mrs. Zoe Coombs, from backdated to the 3rd of November 2025. So I'd like to propose that we do so. Paul, seconding, thank you. Are there any votes against? Any abstentions? And all those in favour? It's good to see.
Can I say just Can I say a last point, please? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, members. So I just would like to say a formal warm welcome to Zoe Coombs to the Fire Authority, but I'd also like to thank Amber Foreman for stepping in as the interim monitoring officer. It's a statutory role, it's a legal requirement, and Amber has acted with absolute impeccability in terms of the delivery of that, and whilst also running an entire directorate. So just wanted to formally thank Amber and also welcome Zoe. Thank you.
I definitely second that, and sorry, I completely omitted that from my earlier responses, but thank you to you. And we also had Shazia helping us for a little while as well. So thank you. Okay, moving on to the number 11, which is the Fire Authority meeting dates, and Amber will present this one.
Thank you, Chair. Quick one from me. So the purpose of this report is to present to the Fire Authority approval the proposed schedule of meetings for the municipal year 2025-2026. This won't be the first time that you've seen these dates, but we're just bringing them back to you for the rest of the year and into 2026. The only thing I really want to note is on page 110 of your bundles, 5.4, we've included the extraordinary meetings that have taken place since we last met, and the only other change is the rescheduling of the Fire Authority meeting in the new year, which was the 25th of March 2026, which has been rescheduled for Tuesday the 17th of March 2026. Other than that, hopefully you have these dates in your calendar and you've confirmed your attendance with Democratic Services.
Thank you very much, Amber. I'm presuming everybody agrees with the dates, so we'll, unless there's any objections, we'll move on to the final item, which is the date of the next meeting, and that's Friday the 13th.
You just need to approve it.
Oh, apologies. We need to have a formal vote on the previous item. No. I've got it on my script. I should have read it properly. I'd like to propose that we do approve the Zoe's. No, it's the meeting dates. Getting confused now. It's my age. Yeah, I'd like to propose that we agree the dates as set out in agenda item 11, Do I have a seconder? Yasin? Thank you. And any votes against? Any abstentions? And all those in favour again. Thank you. So we will now move on to the last item, which is the date of the next meeting, Friday the 13th. Oh dear. Of yes. Although I do believe we'll be celebrating a birthday on that day as well, David. So there you go. Remember how many cakes you have to bring in. But we'll be meeting at a new venue, which is St Michael's Centre in Stoke Gifford, and that's obviously in the us trying to move the meetings around so that they're acceptable and accessible for all members. So thank you all very much for attending.